Hi, everybody. I'm Dustin.
I'm Onna.
And we are not qualified to investigate the paranormal, but we might be more qualified than
George Romero.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many people in these stories that we are less qualified than.
Regale us.
I will regale you with my tales. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. If this is your first time listening, welcome in. This is the podcast where we talk about a paranormal story and we talk about the non-paranormal explanations for it. I have my NPR voice on right now. This is Dustin. I'm your host. Along with me is my co-host, Onna, Dr. Onna Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
She's here to tell me how wrong I am about most things.
No, not now.
I know I say this a lot. I am excited about the story we're going to tell, but my excitement is very reserved because of the nature of the story we're telling. I thought it was going to be a very clear-cut thing, and it was going to be like, this is crazy, this could never happen. It ended up not only being not clear-cut in the sense of scientific explanation, but also a rabbit hole of Western civilization infringing on African culture. And so, with that being said...
Not a light topic.
It's not light. I thought it would be a little bit lighter than it was. It's not. I am going to try my damnedest to make sure that I give credit where credit is due, that I explain things properly.
You're already
I don't think
concerned about saying the wrong thing.
I think I am going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And that, I want to acknowledge that up front. I probably am going to say the wrong thing here.
Mm-hmm.
If I offend anybody or anybody's religion, I apologize. I am not a religious person. I just don't believe in most religions. Let's just put it that way. You all obviously know, Anna knows, you all obviously know what I'm going to talk about. I know that it is deep-rooted. It is rooted deep within African culture.
The plural.
African cultures. There, I already made one mistake, and Anna pointed it out. So now I'm going to be sitting here for...
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here to learn, just like everybody else, but I'm also here to tell a story.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to tell these stories as best I can. We'll go on from here. I do have 3 stories and an explanation for you tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 stories are named after the people that are the main focus of these 3 stories. And it spans decades, from the 1930s all the way up until the 1980s.
Cool.
And even further.
I would think so. There's a lot of contemporary things to speak of.
And beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am ready to start the first story.
Tell me a zombie story.
The first story is titled Zora. As a PhD student who had just lost funding for her program, Zora was down on her luck. It wasn't easy for a young academic in the 1930s to secure any kind of funding, but she had a passion and a penchant for researching and capturing the heart of African American culture and writing about its origins. Cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's one. She had one last shot at funding for a special project, traveling to Haiti to investigate voodoo and its roots. After months of trying, she finally got the news that she was waiting for from the Guggenheim Foundation and secured the funding she would need to begin her research. "I can't tell you how much this chance means to me," she wrote back to the foundation. "I'm straining every nerve to the goal." As a major figure in the Harlem Renaissance movement, the Guggenheim Foundation had no doubt that their money would be well spent. I gave her a southern accent.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
In September of 1936, Zora started her adventure and found herself deep in the rural countryside of Haiti, accompanied by local guides who shared stories of the supernatural that pervaded Haitian folklore. The night was alive with whispers of the unknown, and Zora found herself captivated by the mysteries that lay ahead.
Is this Zora Neale Hurston?
Oh,
okay. I don't.
Look at you.
You're always introducing me to
I
history
know.
of people that I don't know about.
And part of this is really important that it is Zora Neale Hurston, but we'll go into that after her story. But yes, very good call. You got it.
Well,
We'll get into that. I'll explain it in a second as to why I wanted this to be a surprise to Onna and why I'm excited about it. Anyway, let's continue on with Zora's journey.
It's a unique name. I mean, that was a really big clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zora's eyes sparkled with anticipation as she accompanied Hugin Jacques and other practitioners to sacred ceremonies, observing their rituals and immersing herself in the energy of the spiritual gatherings. Her notebook became a vessel for capturing the essence of their traditions and melodies of their songs and the significance of their symbolic gestures. This is a tapestry of spirituality and resilience, a testament to the enduring power of African religions. I can feel the heartbeat of our ancestors pulsating within these rituals, Zora said excitedly. As she continued to dive deeper into the ritual locations, they came upon a small village further away than Zora had ever gone. A hush settled over the group, broken only by the rustling of the leaves and the distant sounds of nocturnal creatures. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a gaunt, hollow-eyed man with a vacant stare. Zora's heart skipped a beat as she realized she was face to face with what she had only read about, a zombie. Is that a zombie? Zora said in awe and disbelief. Her guide nodded solemnly, his voice tinged with both caution and reverence. Yes, Zora, that is a zombie. A person brought back from the dead through dark magic and kept in a state of trance-like existence. They are said to be under the control of powerful sorcerers. The zombie's eyes, devoid of life, seemed to penetrate Zora's very being. She felt a strange mix of fear, empathy, and an overwhelming urge to understand the truth behind this haunting figure. Drawing closer, Zora observed the zombie's movements, mechanical, devoid of purpose or awareness. She couldn't help but wonder about the existence and the stories that lay behind those lifeless eyes. What happened to him? How did he become trapped in this state? The journey of a zombie is often filled with tragedy. They are said to have been victims of a sorcerer's spell. When they awaken, they find themselves stripped of their free will and trapped in servitude. Zora was fascinated and asked to take a picture of the man. She saw this man/creature as the embodiment of the sinister Western view of voodoo, and sought to learn more about zombies and the rituals and beliefs surrounding them. Zora's time in Haiti was transformative, as she witnessed the profound impact of African religions on the lives of the Haitian people. The vibrant ceremonies, the rhythmic drumming, and the fervent devotion touched her soul, awakening a deeper understanding of the importance of spiritual practices in preserving cultural heritage. Armed with her experience and insights, Zora returned to her writing, weaving together the threads of her observations and knowledge gained in Haiti, and published her findings and experiences in a book called Tell My Horse in 1938. And that's the end of the first story. There's a lot to unravel here. You deduced that this is Zora Neale Hurston, and it sure is. Onna and I are both from the state of Florida. Zora Neale Hurston is a Floridian writer.
You knew that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, of course.
Yeah.
We both had to read books. Not had to, but
we were exposed to her writing
assigned,
through school. Yeah,
right.
Their Eyes
And
Were Watching God.
Their Eyes Were Watching God is her most famous novel, debatably, but her most famous novel. I didn't know this part. The only reason that we know about Zora Neale Hurston is because Alice Walker published an article in 1975 called In Search of Zora Neale Hurston.
And from there, then the town of Eaton, Florida became associated with her history? Or what?
Well, no. I mean,
Okay.
from there, people like her writings were reawoken.
Okay.
And
then
were brought to light. And
okay.
it was because of Alice Walker and her fame with The Color Purple that she was able to bring up all of these old writings that Zora Neale Hurston had done. So we're going to go on and we're going to tell two more stories. But I want to preface that with the fact that Zora Neale Hurston had gone to Haiti long before anybody else had discovered all of these things, including zombies was part of it.
Long before popular culture.
Zombies was part of it. And I actually do have the picture to show you that she took of the zombie. So she asked to take the picture of the zombie.
Oh, yeah.
I do have photographic evidence for you.
Wow.
That Zora Neale Hurston took. And that, like when I was doing research on this, that was the first thing that popped up was, here's the picture that Zora Neale Hurston took of a zombie. And I was like, I beg your pardon? Like, there were so many things in that sentence that I was truly astounded by. And it was really cool to see. Now, for those of you who have never heard of Zora Neale Hurston, I'm not going to tell you to go out and read Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's a very hard book to get through because it is written in dialect.
Yeah.
Of like Southern Florida, rural Southern Florida.
Black vernacular of that time.
Yeah. From 1930.
And that was
1930s.
very intentional on her part.
Absolutely. And that's what she did. She would go around to these different Southern rural areas and collect data, collect information on rituals, on practices, on superstitions, and she would write about them. And that's why she was such a big part of the Harlem Renaissance. And that's why the Guggenheim Foundation was like, you need to go and study Haiti.
I don't think people think of her as a sort of a historian or a cultural writer. Well, cultural writer for sure, but not like the anthropological aspects of what she wrote.
Absolutely.
She did. Yeah. And she wrote about, enslaved people's histories. Wasn't she involved in that story in Alabama?
In Alabama.
With the last,
right. The last slave ship.
The last ship of enslaved people that was brought in.
Absolutely. A very interesting person throughout history. She wrote a lot. She's known for her fiction work. Yeah. But she wrote a lot of nonfiction.
And that's what, I think that's what's really neat to find out.
Yeah, I don't know if she ever got her PhD. Actually, I'm sorry, I didn't go further into that. But
overrated PhDs. Whatever.
So let's talk a little bit about Haiti. This is all.
Can I see the picture?
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm literally just Googling Zora Neale Hurston zombie photo. I will have everything in the links, of course, in the show notes as usual. Here is the 1937 photograph of a zombie that Zora Neale Hurston took.
I'm just seeing an image of a Haitian man who looks to be tired, looking directly at the camera, it seems, with awareness.
He does seem to have awareness. Yeah, I agree. He just looks very tired and kind of lost.
Yeah.
Maybe a little lost.
I don't know. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, his clothing is disheveled. I don't know, socioeconomically, if that would have been the typical, his typical attire, but he's not looking very happy or well, but it's all in the eyes, right? Like black-eyed children. I can't see his eyes well enough to see much at all.
This is the 1930s. Photography was in its infancy. Let's be honest. It was terrible. So we have potato quality picture of a zombie.
It's better than a lot of the other evidence we've seen, though, in terms of quality photo.
And it was also, it's true, even with high definition things. Yeah. It was better than this is better than Jack Osborne's Skinwalker. So that's the picture.
It would pass in a modern day zombie film or show.
Yeah, it's haunting. It's haunting. He seems upset. He seems tired.
Yeah.
Who knows what that means? And our next story might shed some light on that. But let's talk a little bit about Haiti. I didn't know this. So Haiti was the only African popularized country that was sovereign for 100+ years since Western civilization. Even talking about Africa. So World War I was all about African territories and which European nation owned which African territory. So, as someone who backpacked around Africa, I can tell you that by trying their beer, it was all brewed by the German law, the German purity law, which is it was all influenced by that. Very interesting cultural kind of thing there. But anyway, so everywhere you go, there are these European influences within Africa. In Haiti, however, there is this preservation of this society and these practices and these religions.
It sounds like what you're saying is that a large portion of the Haitian population were enslaved Africans, or were they freed upon being kidnapped and brought to Haiti?
I don't know.
Okay, and who are the indigenous people of Haiti is what I'm asking.
Yeah, it would be Caribbean indigenous people.
Yeah. And so it's a blended population that for 400 years now has been a continuously self-governed blended population of Caribbean and Black people.
Right.
Not governed by white people.
Right. Except for the United States Marine Corps did control Haiti for 20 years.
Okay.
And there's an interesting story behind that. We're not going to get into that here, but you should know about it as we go through and talk about the rest of what we're going to talk about, because we're going to talk about Haiti a lot. And the reason why we're going to talk about Haiti a lot is because Haitian law actually still kind of, from what I understand, acknowledges that somebody can be dead, but a zombie.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
So you can be dead, but not dead. And
interesting. Okay.
they do recognize that because it's part of their religion. It's part of their culture. It's a thing. Now, what a zombie is, we'll go into that in a little bit. But I do want to tell you another story tied to zombies.
Please.
Okay. This next story is entitled Clarvius. In the rural landscape of Haiti, a story unfolded that would challenge the boundaries of beliefs and the mysteries of life and death. It centered around a man named Clarvius Narcisse, whose extraordinary journey would defy all logical explanation. Clarvius lived a modest life in a small Haitian village, working as a farmer and tending to his family's land. However, in 1962, his world took a haunting turn when he suddenly fell ill. His condition rapidly deteriorated, and despite efforts of local doctors and healers, Clarvius succumbed to what appeared to be death. Mourning his loss, his family prepared his body for burial, following the customs and rituals that had been practiced for generations. Days turned into weeks, and life carried on in the village, but unbeknownst to everyone, Clarvius awoke. He found himself buried, but felt the coffin he was buried in being exhumed. His senses were slowly returning, but trapped in a realm between life and death. Confusion and panic washed over him as he started to realize his surroundings. When the coffin lid burst open, a strange man stood over him and force-fed him some type of paste. Clarvius's consciousness slowly slipped away into a nightmare as he found himself ensnared in the clutches of a sinister individual who recognized the opportunity to exploit his condition. Captured and stripped of his autonomy, Clarvius became a pawn in a dark and clandestine scheme. The same individual who had subjected him to his falsified death and robbed him of his soul now forced him into a life of labor on a remote sugar plantation. Stripped of his identity and reduced to a mere shadow, he toiled under the oppressive sun, enduring grueling conditions and experiencing unimaginable cruelty. Day after day, Clarvius worked in the fields, his body a vessel of unrelenting pain and exhaustion. Forced to perform tasks beyond his physical limits, he became a ghostly figure among his fellow laborers. Over a decade went by, and eventually the master of the plantation died. With his death, the regular daily potions that stole his free will and memories ceased, and Clarvius's memories began to slowly return, although they were confused and sporadic. When he finally remembered the village he was from, he returned there in 1980 and was instantly recognized by family and friends and brought back into society. His tale was so astounding that it attracted the attention of the Haitian government, medical doctors, and psychologists. Clarvius's case is arguably the first verifiable zombie case in recorded history. And that's the tale of Clarvius.
Sounds like he was poisoned.
Yes. And we'll go into by what in our next story. But what do you think so far?
Of Clarvius?
Yeah. First of all, of Zora Neale Hurston witnessing zombies for herself. This man who was declared dead, returned to life, somewhat normal life, as normal as you can be after that. I don't even know. That's like coming back from being a POW, I think, or coming back from being a slave. Yeah, because it sounded like he was just an enslaved person.
When was that?
1960. He was kidnapped in let's call it kidnapping because that's what it is. 1962. He eventually came out. I think I said 1980. I think it was like it was in the early 1980s.
And in Haiti?
Yes.
I guess. Well, a couple of things. I don't know enough about Zora Neale Hurston's background before she went to Haiti, like to the extent that she had believed in zombies and was like, oh, is that a zombie? It's like, and then it's like, yes, but that doesn't really go into what the phenomena is and why it's called paranormal, right? It's just a term. And it could, if we think about it from that perspective, it could be a term for someone who is in some sort of stupor and is wandering, as we've talked about, this like dissociative fugue state that can happen and doesn't necessarily attribute that to anything paranormal. It's just a word that we have to remember. We all have an incredible amount of connotations and cultural associations with that word. So I don't know what she meant when she said, is it a zombie? I don't know what
Well, she didn't have the tools that even you have today.
And
the terminology and the studies and
And so when we talk about the second case, it's like you can use words like, you know, near death experience. You can use words like brain injury. You can use like look at medical things that were happening in any kind of toxins in a person's system, stroke, you know, things that can lead a person to appear dead or unconscious, and they're not actually. I can share with you a very recent case of that. Happened in Ecuador last month, where a woman had a stroke, was declared dead, put in a coffin, and then 5 hours later, when they opened the coffin to put her clothing on for her memorial service, she was breathing.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, the modern medical line of how do we declare death? What tools do we have? That's the first kind of piece that comes to my mind with zombies. And then it becomes, if a person is conscious and behaving in a quote zombie-like way, there's a myriad of possible medical explanations for that, medical and psychiatric explanations for that. Yeah. And for this person, we always go first to biologically, did something happen? Was there a stroke? Was there a brain injury? Was there poisoning or a substance medically?
And his medical, I left those out, but his medical condition when he went into the hospital originally sounded like poisoning. Like it just sounded, it was like gastrointestinal issues and not just issues, but, you know, horrific things that were going on, bleeding out of orifices.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
But it sounded like poison for sure.
And then how did he end up in this terrible person's?
He was declared dead by 3 Western doctors. So this was during the occupation of either, you know, of somebody. So it wasn't, and that's what kind of captured the eye of the Western world on this case, because it wasn't a Haitian doctor who found this.
Okay.
It was Western doctors who declared him dead.
This is going to touch on so many pieces because it's dangerous. Like, just because it was a Western or maybe a white doctor does not mean he was being treated with the most care or modern Western medicine. Yeah. He could have been disregarded and as a relic or as an example of racism, institutional or systemic, in the healthcare system by the colonizers. So there's so many pieces that. Right.
So in other words, white doctors made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I guess that doesn't really explain the enslavement. Maybe it does.
That's what I was like, how did he get into that person's
we made a
possession?
mistake. Hey, sugar guy, take this guy and drug him with LSD for. So
how did his body end up
years.
in the custody of this person? And then they either revived him or took him and then.
Right. So part of
that's
the zombie.
A whole different sense.
Part of the zombification ritual. And I took out the word sorcerer in a lot of this, but the word sorcerer was used throughout this story. The zombification ritual happens first by the sorcerer targeting you, making it look like you're dead somehow by a potion or by magic or by something. When you are dead, then they exhume your body and then they give you something to steal your soul. After that, you are a husk of a human and then you are enslaved. And that is, again, this is me reading the things that I'm reading.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm not a religious person or a religion expert, but
I'm flipping it back on you and asking you questions because I have not done, I don't know as much about.
I'll answer as best I can. Yeah.
Okay. So that description that you just gave of the zombification process, does that include death?
Does what include death?
Does that include part of that process death? Do they kill you? I missed that. Do they?
They make your heart. So they make your heart. They make you appear dead.
They make you appear dead. So that's a really important piece. Okay. So okay. So and then the second, is this as of a Haitian voodoo belief that you're describing?
It is, but the next person I get into does this really great talk, and I'm not saying he's the end all be all to Haitian beliefs. He does have a very good explanation of the cyclical idea of life within African cultures, which is we are alive. When we die, we get closer to God. And when we die, that doesn't necessarily mean we die. It's this, it just means that our souls have kind of left our bodies. And our bodies are just husks at that point. I can't do it justice. I do have that YouTube video that I watched of him talking. I will put it in the notes.
Okay.
And the next story we're going to talk about is actually about this man. So and his studies.
Okay.
If you want me to read that, I think that might explain some of the stuff you're going into.
Yeah, the questions that I have about it as a belief system in the socio-historical context of that.
No, this is going to go more into the chemistry of zombification.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's all fascinating.
Yeah. I did take out a lot of the anthropological studies because this man has gotten credit for quite a bit of things. And it turns out that Zora Neale Hurston actually
had
did a lot
already, of course. Yeah.
So, and yes, he's a white Canadian man.
Who wrote about this in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then she had already written about it 40 years before.
Yes. But with that being said, he does try really hard to express that he's not the first person to do this, and also express that, he wanted things to go differently.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's put it that way.
Tell me that story, please. Story number 3.
The story number 3 is entitled Wade. During his research in Haiti, Wade Davis, an ethnobotanist, made significant discoveries related to the toxins used in the practice of zombification. His investigations unveiled the presence of specific substances that played a crucial role in inducing the death-like state and subsequent reanimation of individuals. Davis's scientific explorations led him to identify a potent neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin. Tetrodotoxin.
Tetrodotoxin.
Yeah?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I can just make things sound like words.
Tetrodotoxin. Yeah, you're a doctor. Of course you can. Which he found to be a key element in the zombification process. This toxin is derived from various natural sources, including the flesh of pufferfish found in the Caribbean coastal waters. The effect of tetrodotoxin on the human body is profound. It inhibits nerve impulses, leading to muscle weakness, respiratory depression, and a decrease in heart rate. The victim appears lifeless with no discernible sign of consciousness or responsiveness. However, the toxin does not cause any significant damage to the brain or vital organs. Wade published his findings and experiences in the book The Serpent and the Rainbow, which made its way into a movie directed by Wes Craven in 1988. Despite the sensationalism of his work, Wade continued to write and speak on Haitian culture to dispel all the myths and lies that had been told about this rich and vibrant culture. I added that last part in there because I really wanted to hammer that home. When I saw him speak about it, he didn't seem like a man who was trying to cash in on sensationalizing other people's cultures or religion. He sounded really upset about the way that The Serpent and the Rainbow went in 1988. Of course, it was given to Wes Craven, so
he's like, I'm Canadian guy. The damn Americans got a hold of this.
No, I think he admits that this was it was what it was. Now, with all this being said, lots of controversy around the way that Davis performed his scientific research. There have been people who are like, this is straight up, he had falsified data.
Oh.
There are people who are like, he didn't falsify the data, but it was bad science.
In what way?
I don't know.
Okay. There's so many ways to do bad science.
It's on Wikipedia.
We haven't talked about that enough.
Yeah. So basically, Davis was credited with going and living with the Haitians and doing a lot of anthropological work and finding these different neurotoxins. He was, by trade, an ethnobotanist. So I think what that means is somebody who researches plants within a culture.
Yeah. How cultures use plants.
Right.
Or use, I don't know. I don't know.
I think a botanist is plants. I could be wrong. Okay.
I mean, yeah. But
anyway, let's say it wasn't.
Okay.
There still was.
You can do derivative research. You can branch out.
Sure. And I think he did here. And I still think that it wasn't that great. Now, again, this was back in the 1970s, 1980s. One of the things that made Wade decide to go to Haiti, aside from a large grant, I think from Harvard, was Clarvius' story. So he went and he met with Clarvius, and he did, so The Serpent and the Rainbow is actually based off of Clarvius' story.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is his story.
I've only seen the movie. I haven't read a lot about it, so you're going to have to help dispel me of some of
I've never seen it. I have no idea.
I mean, I think they depict him as he's a nice guy, but
I have no idea. I did not see the movie. I don't know any of the main characters.
It's not that great.
I didn't want to watch the movie to begin with because when I was researching this, because Wade Davis basically said it was bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah. He said it was sensationalized, and he gets it, I think, to a certain extent of where it's like, well, Hollywood, they had to sell the movie, but also like he didn't have to cash in necessarily. But I'm not here to get mad at anybody for making money, and this is the way the world works, right? Now, what we are here to do is to talk a little bit about how these things have gotten sensationalized and what might actually be going on here, and kind of give a little bit of history, but then also dive into some more scientific stuff.
Yeah.
One of several of Davis's, several of Davis's critics have come out to say, actually, most of the things that you described sound like mental illnesses.
And so he was trying to say he was trying to help explain the use of these neurotoxins in a cultural context in zombification practices.
Yep.
And in many ways dispel the notion that zombies are paranormal, but are actually and are caused by some magical religious practice, but in fact it's caused by an intentional exposure to these chemicals that make someone appear dead and that makes someone then in a subdued state.
Yes. So then I think those are two things that we just go ahead and solidify right now. When we say zombie, we mean somebody who has died, come back from the grave, and no longer has any free will or a soul.
From a paranormal pop culture perspective, that is the that is the definition that I think we are helping to try to look at. What are the actual explanations for something that might appear like that?
Right.
Because people are not walking around dead. Not many people believe this to be real, though. You're not telling me any stories. Well, that's what I asked about with the original story that you mentioned was Zora, and we don't even know what she meant when she said that term. She might have already been aware of practices that involve, quote, zombification of a living person.
I think she was.
And that's my question. Did Wade learn this by people who are saying, whatever the world thinks zombies are, here's what they're actually caused by these substances?
Right.
Or is it a popular belief system in Haiti that these are caused by magical religious practices? Is it a combination?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the use of the term sorcerer is prolific
in Haitian culture.
In Westerners describing Haitian culture.
Oh, okay.
And so when you say sorcerer, that's going to include magic, black magic, all these different terms that have kind of come up.
Okay. So what would be? Can I ask you a question? And did Wade describe this, or have you read anything about what's the motivation to use these substances and to zombify a person?
So when Clarvius came back, he was welcomed back into society. However, there had been reports of him abandoning his children, abandoning his wife, trying to steal the land from his brother. So it could be that somebody paid or hired a sorcerer, a voodoo sorcerer or sorceress to go after him and zombify him to get him out of the way. Or to punish him for doing something wrong.
Interesting.
Now, that's a very Western view of this, because another thing that I heard Wade Davis talk a lot about is the American occupation of Haiti, in which a lot of the brass, a lot of the officers wrote books about. And it was all from a very Christian-centric. This is black magic. This is for evil. There's no good reason for this to happen. There's no, so it's very hard to try to sift through all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's also hard to find the truth of what really happened to Clarvius, because a lot of it was undocumented. A lot of what really happened might have been swept under the rug by the government. It was embarrassing to the Western doctors who were there, who declared him dead. They might have just been trying to cover up something themselves. We don't know. There's
and then who was he enslaved by?
A wealthy sugar plantation owner.
A colonizer. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't find that information. I couldn't find the name of the person. Yeah, it's very obscure, because he just kind of shows up. Now, this also might not be Clarvius who shows up at the end of it. He apparently only returned to his village once he had found out, first of all, once he had regained his consciousness and everything, but also I think it was after his brother had died, and now the land was kind of up for someone to grab. And so then this man shows up in the village. Now, the village embraced him. His wife embraced him and knew him to be who he said he was. However, also, I wouldn't be surprised if women couldn't own land. So then this guy shows up who kind of looks like him, and she says, "You were a zombie you were my my husband and a zombie for a long time, and now I can live back on my land again, and I don't have to worry about
so
any
many
of that
pieces.
stuff. Right?
Yeah,
lots of pieces here. But I sent you an article on some of the more reasonable explanations for some of these people's behaviors, because this isn't the only documented case. There are several other documented cases, but I wanted to send you that article where you could kind of dive into that and see some of the psychological reasons behind this.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to me because it's sort of just getting at not so much the cultural and historical history that you're getting into a bit, but what might be going on when a person appears in a zombie-like state, just from a what's psychologically going on. Because again, we're not going to assume that they are dead and have reemerged from the dead, right? Because that's not within the bounds of normal explanations of what happened to people, right?
Right.
That's
but I think
paranormal. So among the normal explanations, yeah.
There was one person in there who was like, I think I'm dead. I smell like death. There's death.
Yeah. So that was one of them. The person might believe, they might hold a delusional belief that they are a living dead person and that they are rotting and that's an interesting one because I had not heard of that.
Really? Because I kind of get that as like
that they're sort of they're in a delusional state and then they're behaving consistently with their delusion that they are dead.
But behaving,
what was that called?
Behaving by like their idea of what a zombie would be from a Western movie perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting too, because you have these delusions that you're dead, but then you're acting like a movie zombie more than anything else, right?
Well, that goes back to expectancy theory that we talked about before.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm giving you alcohol. It's not really alcohol. You still might behave like you were drinking.
Right.
It's powerful what our associations in our brain do to our behavior, especially in a delusional state or in very vulnerable psychiatric condition.
And one of the things,
disorder.
One of the things I read about real zombies was, of course, the case. I think it was in Florida of the person who did bath salts and then bit somebody.
Oh gosh.
Or ate somebody's face or something like. It was some really weird thing like that.
Yeah.
But that's all that Western idea of what a zombie is. If you look at Haitian lore, zombies don't eat people.
No, they're very much.
They don't know what to do. I mean, they might kill somebody because their handler, quote unquote, has them kill somebody, but that, the craving of human flesh is just like, that's like a Romero thing, right?
You're right. But I think it gets at the bridge that we're talking about between a culture where they might use the term zombie to describe a person who's behaving in a dissociative state, and that might be because of a psychiatric condition or a medical condition in a context where they don't necessarily have Western medical explanations for those things.
Yeah.
And then combine that with then the West hears about these things, and because of potentially a very biased and maybe racist ideology, they're going to assume that what they hear of as, they use the word zombie, they make people zombies. And then what are the worst things that then they're going to ascribe all these terrible behaviors because they believe that those people are possible of those behaviors. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like those zombies from those people from that region of the world make zombies, and then they eat people, like the worst possible human behaviors. So I think that it goes back to in group, out group, fear of other hierarchical thinking about humans, and then just attributing, creating stories and bad behavior about people that's not true.
Yeah.
I think that's a piece of it. So the mundane psychological explanations for the not stereotyped cannibalistic behavior of zombies, but the just person behaving in a quote zombie-like state of catatonic, dissociated, not connected with reality. They might be physically immobile, or they might be walking and meandering. Yeah, that includes what you mentioned, a very specific delusional disorder where a person believes that they're a zombie and then acts that way. That's very rare. They said it was Cotard syndrome. I've never heard it. I've never seen it. Okay. Then there are ones that I have seen, which is like catatonic forms of schizophrenia. So a person is basically immobilized at a rarer form of schizophrenia, where a person is not speaking or moving or not showing a range of human responses, but they're alive and they're awake. Yeah. Eyes are open, breathing. Maybe then you present them with food they might eat, but they're not otherwise engaging with the world.
But not people's brains.
No, never seen that, but have definitely seen people in that state. And then even before that, the more basic is brain injuries, epilepsy. A person's had a severe stroke, and we see a loss of functioning because of brain functioning. Yeah. But that's often, when we think about also forms of dementia, where like frontotemporal dementia, where you're going to see deterioration in the cerebral cortex, you're going to see more of the personality deteriorate before you're going to see basic functions deteriorate. So yeah, extreme forms of learning disability, developmentally disabled individuals, but again, they're not dangerous. And that also goes to the misconception of people with mental illness as dangerous.
Right. I think one of the shocking things about actually studying zombies and true real zombies, or trying to find what they were or what they're believed to be, is that they're not. Again, I think
they're not zombies.
They're not dangerous.
No,
they're enslaved people. It sounds like enslaved, kind of drugged to, which is, I think, how current human trafficking works. I don't think it's changed very much.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. In Haitian culture, when did this belief system emerge, 400 years ago, around the time of enslaved people showing up in Haiti?
No, I think actually, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but from what I've been able to read, it all comes down to the cycle of life within the beliefs of the peoples of Africa.
So it's more okay. So in the African diaspora, there were belief systems that carried into,
not necessarily believe that you could become a zombie. I don't think it was that clear cut.
No,
but I think the belief of like a cyclical, like here's a relationship with nature, with God, or with some supernatural being, whatever it is they believed in, and being able to go there, come back from it, believing that our bodies are just husks, but that they can be inhabited. There can be something there without a soul. That's that's Christian as well. There's nothing, super, divergent than what Western civilizations believe.
Yeah. And you could be akin to like a demonic possession at the worst.
Right. Yeah. At the worst. That's right. So, but it sounds like that's kind of where all of this came from. And again, I wish I did know a little bit more about it, but I didn't have time to read The Serpent and the Rainbow. I didn't have time to read Zora Neale Hurston's
you're not getting
book.
your dissertation done on this right now.
I'm not getting any dissertations done right now, no. Before we go any further, I do have 3 real-life zombies or zombie-like things that occur in nature that I would like to talk to you about.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah. So the last part here is called real zombies. The first biological thing we're going to talk about is Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. And that might sound very familiar to some of you out there, and Anna, it might sound very familiar to you, because cordyceps are the names of the zombies in The Last of Us.
I love it. Oh, this is a good point for me to mention that, taking off my psychologist hat, I'm just like a super fan of zombie movies and shows and stuff, and I haven't acknowledged that at all. And I want to talk a little bit at some point about maybe why do Westerners and Americans have such a fascination with zombies.
Yeah.
There's a huge piece that I can just speak to as a person who's into it.
No, absolutely. But for now, we're going to talk about Ophiocordyceps unilateralis.
Okay.
This is a type of parasitic fungus that infects ants, alters their behavior, and ultimately kills them. The infected ant is compelled to climb to a high point where it clamps onto a leaf or twig before it dies. The fungus then grows out of the ant's body and releases spores to infect other ants. This zombie-like behavior serves to propagate the fungus.
That's amazing. It's a unique sort of parasitic relationship, right? I don't know what biologists would call it. Does it constitute parasitic, or?
It's not like, it definitely constitutes parasitic, but not the good kind, not the symbiotic.
No, that's symbiotic. That's not parasitic.
This is
that's
not
Yeah.
Well, no, I think there is a type of, remember we looked this up, there is a type of parasitic that is symbiotic.
Is it called a parasitic?
It's
is. The vernacular,
we were
though.
both freaked out by that.
I thought that was a symbiosis.
Anyway, I don't remember, but I feel like we've talked about this before. Yeah.
Well, and that would be if we had a biologist on here talking about in nature there are relationships between organisms, and so even if it's a neurotoxin that puts you in a zombie-like state, does it get anything out of doing that? If it's if it's an organism, that does that, not a toxin.
The second one is called Toxoplasma gondii. Now, I did some research on this. This is a normal thing that happens within humans. Actually, all mammals are susceptible to Toxoplasma gondii, but there's something special about this one. It's a parasitic protozoan that can alter the behavior of rodents, making them less afraid of predators. The parasites need to get into the predator's digestive system to complete its life cycle. This change in behavior benefits the parasite. So, in other words, when Toxoplasma gondii gets into a rodent specifically, it makes them less afraid of cats and other predators because they can propagate within their digestive tract.
Wow. That's amazing.
Isn't it crazy? It changes their brain chemistry to be less afraid.
Wow.
Yeah. That's it does. That's not quite changing it's not like changing free will. It's something else. It's something actually more sinister.
Because it changes your motivations. It changes your vulnerability.
Yeah.
I say we're already thinking like, what if that happened to us? And that's part of the appeal of understanding these aspects in nature and biology is like, is the self-referential implications we always have where we're like, what if that could happen to a human? Like, can humans ingest this stuff or be infected?
Yeah, Toxoplasma gondii. Yeah, I don't. From what I read, it doesn't have the same effect on humans. It still is a dangerous parasite to get infected with, but I don't think it doesn't change our brain chemistry, or if it does, it's only because of fever or something else like that. It's not. Yeah. It's only specific. It's like rodents specifically that they mention.
But that would make a great horror film. Right?
Yeah.
That like,
I'm
there's
sure
a version of this. Just
there's
like,
probably a horror film out there that's already.
That's like, then we all just start jumping in the water with great white sharks, and we start putting ourselves in really vulnerable situations.
Yeah. This last one's gonna blow. This last one blew my mind. I guess I should say. I don't know if it's gonna blow your mind. This is called the zombie parasite, Leucochloridium. This is a parasitic worm that infects snails. The worm's larvae develop in the snail's eye stalks, causing them to swell and pulsate with bright colors. This attracts birds, which eat the snail's eye stalks and then spread the parasite's eggs through their droppings. That blew my mind. So it causes obviously a physical deformity, I guess you could say, but a very specific physical deformity that attracts a predator.
Yeah.
That is insane.
So both of those,
so it doesn't change their behavior. It just changes the way they look. Mm-hmm. And then makes them more attractive to the thing they need in order to spread.
Yeah.
That's insane. Amazing. And that's, I mean, again, most of these things are now in some kind of movie or video game.
It is it's the amazing functions of tiny microscopic organisms. Like even a virus, if you think about it, that it's an invisible thing that can get in your body and make you go around sneezing to spread itself. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And you know what? One of the things I read about that I didn't really talk about because it's a little too scary, it's a little too on the nose, is I think it was in Sweden or Russia, where, and I know those are two very different places, but just bear with me, where a scientist had just permafrost is starting to melt around the world. Scientists found what they call a giant virus, and all that means is that you can actually see the virus with your naked eye. You don't need to see it. You don't need a microscope to see it. They call it a zombie virus because apparently when it does infect something, it does change the behavior of the host.
Yeah.
Now apparently it can't infect humans, but number one, stop digging things up from permafrost and bringing back giant viruses. Like, why? Who the hell do you think you are?
They're scientists.
Okay, have they never read any science fiction in their life?
That made them want to do it, to study, the unknown.
Yeah, great. Study the unknown and destroy humanity. Fantastic. Have you never seen the X-Files ever? There's also, 10 episodes about that.
There are, but what I have to say about those episodes,
they're terrible.
Those episodes, no, honestly, by the end, when it's like the government swoops in and quarantines a place and
nukes it
or whatever, and it's supposed to make them look like the bad guys, and it's like they just saved humanity from a discovered parasitic.
Mulder's whole thing though is like, we should know. Not just we should know, but hey, what if this happens again? Like, how do you know this is the only place this is being defrosted from? That I get that too.
But that's in the reality, the government's not doing that. Scientists are just studying this stuff, and then that's The government is not ahead of science. If we've never believed that at any point, we should believe it now. The government is not ahead of science.
No.
On discovering
Any
things.
government, by the way.
The government is funding some of this research, but they're not even involved in that. The government is a bunch of yahoos.
Yeah, they're all yahoos.
Yeah.
You yahoos. Okay. But so those are my real life. No, I won't cut it. That's a good one. Government or yahoos. That's a scientific fact.
I wanted to mention something happening in science that isn't from a from a discovery, but like science being able to create zombies, if you will.
Okay.
So I used to share this with my students when we would talk about the subjectivity of defining death, which is a piece of what I think we're talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
So in 2019, Yale researchers were able to restore the brain functioning of the tissues obtained from 32 pig brains 4 hours after they had lost blood circulation and were
they brought that babe
beheaded. So just the brain, just the heads of the pigs were
very alien too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They was a revival through circulating of oxygen and nutrients rich solution through the brains using a complex system specifically designed to do that. For up to 6 hours after the fluids were initially pumped, the blood vessels and capillaries throughout the brains remained dilated, delivering oxygen and nutrients, and the brain showed levels of oxygen intake comparable to a functioning intact brain. They demonstrated less decomposition than the other pig brains, and they engaged in immune responses, so they started to act like they were functioning brains. So, reanimation
dun, dun,
on the horizon.
The zombie pigs.
Yeah.
It's going to be the next Wes Craven movie you see.
Yeah.
And you wanted to talk about some other things about how much you love zombies and
and why.
And why. Socio-political, economical reasons as to why.
Sure. That my very childlike brain just liked The Night of the Living Dead from the first time I saw it.
Absolutely.
I mean, because we often like to talk about here are the mundane explanations, but that are even more fascinating when you look at biology and psychology for paranormal phenomena. But it's also then, why are people still so interested? If we can if after doing just like half a day's research on this, you can uncover such an amazing history and.
Well, I'm a really good researcher.
Oh, sure. And you are. You are.
I can Google things every once in a while, sure.
Well, I think you did a great job. And you probably said some of the wrong things, but I
definitely did
these things. So,
by the way, if I said any of the wrong things, feel free to email me and let me know at stories@paranormaloutsiders.com. What's the name of our
what are we doing?
Podcast again?
So, if you're actually able to like quote debunk the paranormal of this and there has not been a documented case of a person coming back to life in this way, then what keeps people motivated and what keeps the pop cultural aspect of this going? And I think a lot of it is our Western fascination with death, but so much of what I love about zombie movies is the social commentary among in comparison to so many other paranormal genres, like the vampire genre or the ghost genre. There's so much more on the nose.
Stupid, sexy
commentary,
vampires.
Right? That zombies get at about how we relate to each other as humans, in group, out group, the dynamics of survival, and the ridiculousness of our fears, our behaviors, and consumerism. There's so many great themes across Romero's work, and although he's not qualified to investigate the paranormal, I think that
he never claimed to be, by the way.
No, he never claimed to be. He never even claimed in the first film, in Night of the Living Dead, when he made a powerful social commentary by having a black male protagonist hero who then, spoiler alert, at the end of this very, very old film, is killed not because he's a zombie, but because some ignorant person shot him through a window, maybe thinking he was a zombie, but Romero inadvertently made a really powerful cultural comment about race in American society at the time. When people asked him, I liked his answer was, I hired the most talented actor that I could access at that time with my college budget and my or I don't know if he might have been a dropout at the time, but that he wasn't seeking to make that comment. And I mean, and he obviously, this actor should have been much better paid and had a better career at that point already. And I think there's something really powerful in that story.
100%.
And then everything from there.
And as a horror movie fanatic, buff, whatever you want to call me, not just the zombie genre, but all of them, I think the horror genre is able to do that better than any other genre because you don't have to worry about acceptance.
No, it's so many.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to find somebody who likes your film.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that causes a lot of garbage nowadays. Like, it is. There's just so much garbage out there.
Yeah.
But there are some very thoughtful, low budget movies that touch on really important social themes.
Oh yeah, so many great directors started out in horror. And for them,
and still
it
go
was,
back to it.
And and that's like, this is what I watched in my spare time, or they were going back to making it too. Yeah. And Guillermo del Toro. I think James Cameron might have been like some directors you would be surprised to know started out in horror, because you get to play with a lot of
Lord of the
themes.
Rings.
It's a genre you can play in. There is a lot of, to come back to this topic though.
Peter Jackson.
Sheesh. In the horror genres, there's a lot of perpetuation of problematic stereotypes, beliefs, and imagery, and misrepresentation of cultural and really, cultural practices. Like, so that's another piece I was going to give Romero credit that I forgot to mention. He did not say that the origin of zombies in his was not some misrepresentation of voodoo belief systems or Haitian belief systems. It was just the radiation explanation, right? For like that,
right? Yeah, the cosmic radiation.
The cosmic radiation. You see that, like, people usually say, oh, it's the B explanation. If it's like a meteor dropping down, it's going to be a bad zombie movie. And it's like, no, maybe actually it's really important to move away from trying to appear authentic by using stories that are not rooted in your culture, that you're not representing that community. And maybe we need more stories that are representative.
Right. And that's an interesting thing to bring up, especially about the horror genre, is that all bets are off, right? Nobody is safe. I know there's people out there who are thinking like, oh, well, you're making, who cares if they stole something about Haitian religion, because they steal stuff about Christian religion all the time. There's a million horror movies about
demonic possession, and
there's some satire about it, and there's and some of it is. So I think that the important thing is to look at, if you're utilizing a figure from a marginalized and also possibly sensationalized member of society, then you might not be doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's yes, exactly what I was trying to say. Like, who are you representing, and who needs representation? And then maybe we can punch up.
Yeah.
Or derive stories in a different way.
Derive stories in a different way. Right. Did Romero mean to do that? No, I don't think so. Of course, we would never know. But
I'm curious, actually. We could look into that. If he intentionally chose the radiation origin to remove it from.
I mean, did he mean to use something from a marginalized population? No, I don't think he knew he was doing it. I don't think I don't think a lot of people know they're doing it. I think it's just something that's like ingrained in us as far as society goes and what we do.
I mean, it's always been intentional to call, like, so many movies that don't use the word zombie. That's almost become a joke. Like, don't use that word.
Right, The Last of Us, that was a big thing. They didn't want to use the word zombie.
Yeah. And
they said cordyceps, or they said some other thing that was actually a real scientific thing, which could like that. Their reasoning was that the Earth's temperature got to such a point that cordyceps could now infect human beings and spread themselves, right? Yeah. So that it almost, the reason why they didn't say zombie, I think, is because of the religious.
I think that now we would say that. Yeah. Whereas when I was a kid, it was like, they don't ever use the word zombie. It sounded silly. Yeah. It was like, oh, they're just doing it to make you, to like, what? So you think that they've never heard that word before, or that they don't know what that movie's about. But now it's like, oh yeah, no, that's a very specific word. And
then there was World War Z with Brad Pitt.
Where they went the other way. Oh boy. Yeah, I do own a copy of the Zombie Survival Guide that some of that was based on. Yeah, it's a huge subculture, a popular culture thing. I think this has been fun. The last piece we didn't talk about is the virus. We did talk about virus obsession with that. Yeah, fear of that. I mean, post COVID, that's a certainly. And post Last
worldwide
of Us
pandemic or epidemic. Yeah, absolutely.
And that fear. I mean, so much of this is our relationship to death that isn't very well articulated in the modern era.
Or the belief that there's a fate worse than death. There's you come back as a monster. You come back as a a flesh-eating, brain-craving, decomposing being, cursed.
Yeah.
You know, so that cursed idea is still there, just like from the Haitian belief, but now there's this other aspect of it that now you are inhuman. You are not just inhuman, but you're spreading it too. Like there is that whole thought process behind it as well, which is an interesting, again, like you said, part of the horror genre, part of the zombie genre. Yeah. Because as a consumer, every time you buy something, you're spreading it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then also just like all the my boyfriend's a zombie, or like I zombie, or all the, like my zombie ex-girlfriend, or like zombies from California. I don't know. There's so much, like, it's not
Abraham Lincoln Zombie Slayer.
That was good, but in my opinion, but it was,
well, the Vampire Slayer one was good. The zombie one is a little low budget.
Yeah. But I think there's this like, it's a fun thing. It's fun to be I don't know. I'm just sounding old now.
Yeah.
But
no, but I think this was great. I really enjoyed looking into it.
Yeah.
It was incredibly stressful trying to write these things because I really wanted to make sure I got it right. I'm sure I didn't. And for any mistakes I made, I apologize for. Again, if you notice anything and you want me to correct it, please feel free to write into stories at paranormaloutsiders.com.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to correct myself, or I'm sorry. I'd love for you to correct me, and for me to be able to right the wrongs and to do what I can, to do my part.
And then when you don't hear from anyone, you'll be like, I did it.
Oh, I nailed it. Oh yeah.
100%.
No, I know I didn't nail it at all. But I really tried. The only way I'll learn is if someone tells me what I did wrong. So. Please tell me what I did wrong. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed listening to all my wrongness.
Yeah. Thanks for making this so easy on me.
No, Anna did great, of course, as always. Yeah. The psychological reasoning behind what somebody might perceive as a zombie. I think we see that a lot in our daily lives.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So it was good to hear, obviously from an expert, from a doctor, from a PhD.
We need to take care of people in vulnerable states a whole lot better than we do.
Yeah.
All of those potential
Not
explanations.
Just feed them a bunch of hallucinogens and have them work in sugarcane fields. Okay.
Let's talk about social commentary. Most of us are just having to live off stimulants and depressants and barely get enough sleep and then go to our jobs for 60 hours a week. So who are the zombies in Western culture now?
Throw the mic down. And on that note, thank you all for listening. And we had a lot of fun, and we hope you had fun listening.
Bye.
Bye.